Good morning, Orlando. Monday morning here on the 50,000 watt front porch once again with Orlando's news, weather, and traffic. Here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. Filling in for Bud, this is Yaffe.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. And our top stories this morning, D.C. police say Unite the Right went well and schools open across Central Florida. We'll have the details coming up in 1 minute.
Yeah, we're going to talk about those protests over the weekend and talk about it's been 1 year since the violence in Charlottesville. We'll recap some of the coverage of that next.
And good Monday morning. It's 6:01 on News Radio 102.5. Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Peter Newsham says officers handled yesterday's Unite the Rally really well.
An event like this has a high probability of injury and possibility of even death, as we saw in Charlottesville just 1 year ago. No one was injured today in the District of Columbia, and nobody was killed.
D.C. authorities were able to keep both sides literally separated, and no large-scale incidents of violence broke out. Newsham said officers from many jurisdictions handled the rally well. He also said their idea of keeping dueling sides separate was effective. The rally, again, was held on the anniversary of last year's contentious Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where Heather Heyer was killed after a white nationalist plowed his car into a crowd. This news brought to you by Tresco Bank, Florida's hometown bank.
From what I understand as well, the counter-protesters really dwarfed the protesters of the Unite the Right 2. There's maybe just like 20 of them or something, they said, where there were thousands of counter-protesters. So really interesting.
It really was to see how it changed just a year later.
Yeah.
Locally, it's the first day of school in Orange, Osceola, Volusia, and Lake counties as students join those in Seminole and Brevard returning to class. Drivers, of course, being urged to be extra alert for pedestrians and bicyclists who may suddenly come out of unexpected places. The school buses are also heading out. A NASA mission that will come closer to the sun than ever before is now underway. The Parker Solar Probe was launched atop a United Launch Alliance Delta IV Heavy rocket yesterday at 3:31 a.m. Eastern Time. Liftoff had been scheduled for Saturday morning, but the countdown was halted at the last minute by a helium pressure issue. The Parker Solar Probe is designed to fly through the sun's super hot corona to study the solar wind and sunstorms, and named after the gentleman who was told for years that there was no such thing as solar wind.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And he proved there was the existence, and now he has the Parker Solar Probe to prove it.
Wow. That's really cool.
Isn't that cool?
So are you going to go over the scientific facts on why there is solar wind?
Oh,
you probably know.
At this point, I'm not even sure what day it is, how to spell my last name, or where I park my car.
Okay. Thought maybe we'd have a scientific lesson this morning.
No, this is the illusion of awake. This is the illusion of awake. A serious story from out west where the flight data recorder and parts of the cockpit voice recorder have been recovered from the wreckage of a plane that crashed near Seattle after being stolen by an airport worker. Richard Russell took off in the empty Horizon airplane from SeaTac Airport on Friday, performing stunts in the air before crashing on a small island in Puget Sound. Along with the recorders, investigators also found human remains among the wreckage. Just an unbelievable story to see an airplane worker was actually able to steal a plane.
Yeah, and from what I've been reading, it's possible. These airplane workers have access to all of that stuff, and as long as they know what they're doing, one person said it's not like there's a key and you put the key in the ignition and start it like a car.
But what's interesting in this case is that they don't believe he ever had flying lessons. They literally believe he may have learned how to fly from video games.
Really?
Yeah, he has no flight training experience.
Wow. I mean, I know the family was really shocked.
Oh, yes. 29-year-old married father, I believe. Mm-hmm. Suicidal man. Meanwhile, a new report finds nearly 10,000 people have been diagnosed with 9/11-related cancers linked to the toxic dust at Ground Zero. The New York Post reports the Federal World Trade Center Health Program has counted 9,795 first responders, downtown residents, workers, and students who have come down with cancers related to the residual aftermath of 9/11. The group's medical director, Dr. Michael Crane, says the WTC health program at Mount Sinai still gets up to 20 referrals a week from people getting sick with suspected 9/11 illnesses.
20 a week?
20 a week, nearly 20 years out.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Also out west, fire crews in California are making progress on some major wildfires still burning in the state. The Mendocino Complex fire in Northern California grew to over 336,000 acres over the weekend. The larger of the two blazes forming the Mendocino Complex fire is now 62% contained, while the smaller one is over 90% contained. In Southern California, the Holy Fire is now more than 50% contained. Over 1,300 firefighters are working to put out the fire southeast of Santa Ana. So far, only the Holy Fire has burned over 22,000 acres. And finally, the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, is reportedly gravely ill. Online news outlet Showbiz 411 says the 76-year-old singer is surrounded by friends and family members who are preparing for her death. Franklin has dealt with numerous health problems over the years and was diagnosed with cancer in 2010. The last time she took the stage was in August 2017.
Oh, so I mean, last year.
Yeah.
So she was singing, even with cancer and all the health issues, she was still singing.
She was still singing.
How old is she, do you know?
76.
76.
Yeah.
Definitely a legend.
Yeah, absolutely a legend. So, of course, anything breaks on that story or any of the other stories that we've covered so far this morning, we'll be sure to let you know. WFLA News Time at 6:07. You can read about and watch a New York City taxi driver arrested after a road rage brawl at 1025WFLA.com. It is a Monday. The first hour of Good Morning Orlando with Yaffe starts now.
News, weather, and traffic for the best audience in talk radio. This is Good Morning Orlando on News Radio 1025.
And yes, this is Yaffe filling in for Bud. Bud's on vacation this week. We have Deb is still here, though. She's going to give you the news at the top and the bottom of every hour. And we have Paul, who is producing today, and we have Stephanie screening your calls at 407-916-5400. So it's been a year since those protests in Charlottesville that turned violent and left one person dead. We're going to recap a little bit of what happened a year ago. And there's something that I noticed in all of the coverage that was missing. And we'll talk about that as well. And we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 1025 WFLA. Yes, and this is Yaffe filling in for Bud. If you want to call in with a comment, you can call 407-916-5400. Or you can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. So because I know you have better things to do on a Sunday, like go to church, hang out with your family, watch football, or just sleep, because sleep is always good too, I decided I would watch and listen to all of the different Sunday shows for you and see what they were covering in the news so you would not have to. And obviously, the big topic of yesterday and the big topic of this morning, of course, is the fact that it has been a year. It's the year anniversary of the violent protests in Charlottesville. It's obvious that the media would cover this. It's obvious that I would cover this. But there was something I noticed that was not covered, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But I do want to get to what happened a year ago. And the biggest controversy, other than the fact that the Unite the Right rally even happened and that it turned violent, were the comments by President Trump shortly afterwards, which caused a lot of controversy. And this was really the big topic yesterday. A lot of the news shows brought people on to once again criticize Trump for how he has dealt with race relations. So let's recap a year ago when Trump held a press conference and talked about how both sides were violent. And he said some other things that caused a lot of controversy. Here it is.
You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent. You had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
So the first part of that comment, I mean, he got trashed for everything he said there. The first part, I don't really have too much of a problem with because there was violence on both sides a year ago. I mean, that's just a fact. There was one side. You could say that the white nationalists started it by having the protest in the first place, and that's true, but there was violence against them as well. It got very violent on both sides. The biggest problem I have with Trump's comments from a year ago is the fact that he said there were good, decent people on both sides. I don't remember a lot of good, decent Nazis there. I remember them carrying torches and talking about how Jews will never rule again and basically saying a bunch of racist, bigoted comments. So by him saying, well, there was good people in that group, not really. There really weren't. They were white nationalist, racist Nazis. And that was really the problem I had with his comments a year ago. The first part was true. There was violence on both sides because, of course, Antifa was there, the anti-fascist group, which has been known for violence because they believe violence is how you get a message across. That's what Antifa believes. I've played comments from Antifa people on the show before. They believe in violence. Well, Antifa was also at the protest yesterday in Washington, D.C. And yet I didn't really see any coverage of this from any of the Sunday shows that I watched. It was like Antifa didn't exist. Like they weren't there. Like they weren't causing any of the problems. Yes, they focus on the white nationalists, which are a problem. There's no doubt about it. But you got to cover Antifa as well. In fact, here's some audio from over the weekend when the Antifa protesters were marching. Listen to what they were saying. This is from over the weekend.
All cops are racist! You better face it! 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 All cops are racist!
So if you couldn't hear that, what they were saying was all cops are racist. You had a lot of people marching over the weekend in counter protests, Antifa people yelling, all cops are racist. Don't you think that deserves a little bit more coverage than it gotten? I'm just saying. Not only that, but there was some Antifa members who also assaulted an NBC reporter. I didn't hear anything about that on Meet the Press. I didn't hear anything about that on any of the Sunday shows. This is why a lot of people on my side don't trust the mainstream media. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. When it comes to this whole controversy of race, though, I want to play a voice of reason of this and talk about that as well. This is Good Morning Orlando at 6:19. Earlier in the show, I shared with you Trump's tweet on the anniversary of the violence in Charlottesville. Vice President Mike Pence also tweeted out a statement. This is what he said, and I thought it was well said. 1 year since Charlottesville, we remember the tragic events that took place and mourn the loss of life that day. Our nation was founded on truth that all are created equal and endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Bigotry, racism, and hatred run counter to our most cherished values and have no place in American society. We condemn racism and violence in the strongest possible terms. This weekend, Karen and I will pray for the victims of that tragic day and their families. And we also continue to pray in these divided times that Americans will come together in new and renewed ways in this one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. That was the statement by Vice President Mike Pence. I thought it was well said.
Can I just say...
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Updates on our top stories every 10 minutes here on Good Morning Orlando.
iHeartRadio is the easy-to-use app for music and radio. Download the free iHeartRadio app today.
So we've been talking about the fact that it is 1 year. It was 1 year ago when there was violence in Charlottesville, protests against white nationalist Nazis and Antifa members, which are mostly communists. I'm going to get to that in a sec, but let's take a call here. Let's go to Kevin in Melbourne. Kevin, what's your take on the topic this morning?
Hey, Yeffy. Yeah, you're not going to ever hear the mainstream media talk about Antifa because they have the same agenda. So, they're going to ignore them, and they're going to focus on people who are patriotic Americans and demonize them and say they are the ones being violent. That happens every time. I don't care, what event it is. They demonize the patriotic Americans, those that are Trump supporters.
Gotcha. So you think they're not covering Antifa because they want to go after Trump and his supporters?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Would you?
Antifa is on the same side of the mainstream media.
Would you agree though that we shouldn't call Nazis and white nationalists patriotic Americans?
I'm not doing that.
Okay.
I'm not doing that. But you have
I
to
didn't say you are, but I was just asking.
Well, the thing is, you didn't look into it well enough. Not all the people that were in Charlottesville last year were white nationalists and Nazis. Some of those folks that were there were just regular patriotic Americans. They were Trump supporters. I even saw footage from yesterday. Some of them had "Make America Great Again" hats on. Okay, so those are Trump supporters.
Okay, all right, Kevin. I appreciate your call. I remember looking into that march last year, and I wasn't seeing
Nazis.
I wasn't seeing your typical everyday Trump supporter. So when it comes to the clashes, when it comes to the violent clashes, when we have Antifa, when we have these white nationalists, I wanted to play a voice of reason here. I'm recapping different things I saw on the Sunday shows and heard on the Sunday shows that I thought were really important. And on Meet the Press, they had a former governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory, and he was asked about this, and he was asked about race relations in this country right now. And I thought he had interesting comments, and I think he's exactly right. This is what he said.
Can you have this debate on demographic changes without it turning racial, Governor McCrory?
I think some people wanted to turn it racial, the left and the right, because the fringes benefit from those types of debate. People like seeing a car wreck, but I don't like these fringe groups. I wish the president would call out the Nazis more instead of a more general statement.
So he was very critical of President Trump there, and the fact that President Trump wasn't specific enough against the Nazis. But I wanted to go over the point that I think he's exactly right, that I think we are being pulled apart in this country and divided in this country too much by radicals. I really believe that the vast majority of this country doesn't believe in what the white nationalist Nazis believe, and the vast majority of people in this country doesn't believe what the communist Antifa members believe as well. And yet you have these very fringe groups, very small groups who want to get the attention, so that's why they do violence and other thing, and they are getting the attention, and I think they are pulling us apart, and they're radicals, and they really don't represent the majority of the country.
Well, it's just like you've said 100,000 times probably. Everybody's being pulled into a team.
Yeah.
It's just like our last caller. He wasn't willing to say that white nationalists and Nazis are not patriotic Americans because some of them might have worn a red "Make America Great Again" hat. So now they're on his team, and he doesn't want to talk bad about them.
Yeah, and this is really dangerous stuff because if you study, I mean, when I look into this, I literally think of Weimar Germany before they became Nazi Germany. And I know people don't like to make those equivalents, but before that happened, you literally had the communists fighting against the National Socialist Nazis. And guess what? Both of those groups at the time were fringe groups. Both of those groups were the minority. The vast majority of Germans at the time in the Weimar Republic didn't like either of those groups. But because you had these fringe groups pulling the country apart, look what happened to that country. We can't let something like that happen here. We can't let the fringes, these radical Antifa people or these radical Nazis, pull us apart when the vast majority of the country doesn't believe in either of those things. So we're going to talk more about this as the show continues, but Deborah Roberts is coming into the studio right now, and she's going to update the latest on what the D.C. police said about the Unite the Right rally over the weekend. And Omarosa says she was threatened before leaving the White House. It's 6:30 here on Good Morning Orlando. So I thought The Apprentice, ended a while ago. Apparently it's
we all thought that.
Apparently it's like back in the news with Omarosa versus Trump, and you're going to get to that in a little bit.
First, we need to talk about the good news. Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Peter Newsham says officers dealt with yesterday's Unite the Right rally well and says D.C. is well equipped to handle events like this.
There's no city better equipped to facilitate large-scale events than Washington, D.C. Today was an example of a well-executed plan to safeguard people and property while allowing individuals to exercise their First Amendment rights.
That's because D.C. authorities say they were able to keep both sides separated and no large-scale incidents of violence were reported. Newsom said officers from many jurisdictions helped maintain order. Thankfully, there were no injuries reported. The rally was held on the anniversary of last year's Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where a woman was killed after a white supremacist plowed his car into a crowd. This news brought to you by Trustco Bank, Florida's hometown bank. Now the story, Mike, I know you're getting ready to talk about soon, and that is Omarosa Manigault Newman is claiming she was threatened when she was let go from the White House.
They take me into the Situation Room. The doors are locked. They tell me I can't leave, and they start to threaten me, put fear in me.
On NBC's Meet the Press, the former White House staffer says she recorded the conversation with White House Chief of Staff John Kelly. In the recording, Kelly can be heard saying, quote, "If we make this a friendly departure, you can go on without any type of difficulty in the future relative to your reputation," end quote. Omarosa says the fact that she recorded the conversation isn't disloyalty because she needed to do it to prove her truth. However, some are arguing secret conversations from within the White House should not have taken place. And the granddaughter of Martin Luther King thinks the Parkland survivors are making the world a better place. 10-year-old Yolanda King was one of many who met with Stoneman Douglas High School students as the Road to Change tour stopped in Newtown, Connecticut yesterday. Like King, some of the speakers are too young to vote, but they plan to use their voices to change gun laws and stop violence. King tells the Hartford Courant she was nervous about speaking, but she thinks she made a difference. And you can get these stories and more at 1025WFLA.com. The first hour of Good Morning Orlando continues now with Gina Cervetti and the Bloomberg Business Report.
Yes, and we go to New York City to get the Bloomberg Business Report. Good morning, Gina. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. Happy Monday.
And how are the stock futures this morning?
The stock futures look unhappy on this Monday. They are signaling a lower Wall Street open right now with the Dow futures down about 78 points. Not too bad. That's a decline of 0.3%, but still it does look like some losses at the open as the ongoing economic crisis in Turkey is spreading to global markets. The currency's plunge there is reminding investors of past crises in emerging markets, and that's making investors nervous this morning. We did have stocks falling last Friday. The broader market last week was down about 0.2%. The Bloomberg Orlando Index was down about 0.5% last week, but SeaWorld had a really good week. It was the best performer in the local index.
And what else are we watching out for this week?
Well, we have some economic reports that we're going to watch for here in the coming days. Retail sales, that'll be a big one. Industrial production and housing starts. We get an update on consumer sentiment. We get the weekly count of jobless claims, and we have a lot of retailers reporting their results this week. Earnings season is really winding down, but we have some heavy hitters coming up in the coming days. Home Depot, Macy's, Walmart, and JCPenney.
And you know, Elon Musk, when he said he might take the company private, in some tweets, talking about Tesla, I don't think he realized how much controversy he was starting with those tweets. And there's more to that this week, right, Gina?
That's right. Now, Elon Musk and Tesla are being sued by investors for allegedly manipulating share prices after his tweet that he was thinking about taking the company private. And the key here, he said he'd secured funding for the deal. One shareholder complaint filed as a class action in San Francisco alleges that Musk lied about the funding so that he could push the shares higher and ambush short sellers who've been betting against the company. You'll remember that right after he came out with those tweets, the shares shot up. Tesla here is declining to comment on the suits.
Yeah, he could be in some trouble if there's proof that he was lying. That's a big deal. So software giant Oracle is facing a class action lawsuit led by a Florida-based pension fund. What's that story about?
This is Oracle, and it's named in a lawsuit alleging the company's executives lied to shareholders when they explained why cloud sales were growing. The City of Sunrise Firefighters Pension Fund claims Oracle engaged in coercion and threats to sell its cloud computing products, creating an unsustainable model that then fell apart, leading to shareholder losses. An Oracle spokeswoman says the suit has no merit and that the company will vigorously defend against the claims.
And one of the top business stories of the past couple of weeks is the fact that Disney is trying to get a deal for Fox Entertainment assets, and that could have a big impact on certain broadcasting segments in the U.S., right, Gina?
That's right. Disney's Bob Iger may not have planned it this way, but his $71.3 billion deal for Fox's entertainment assets could be about to reshape sports and regional broadcasting in the U.S. With shareholders approving the sale last month, attention has now turned to 22 Fox regional sports networks that regulators are forcing Disney to sell. The networks hold TV rights to 44 professional basketball, baseball, and hockey teams. An auction could value these properties at about $20 billion.
All right, Gina, good to talk to you as always, and we'll be back with you tomorrow morning.
All right, looking forward to it. Thanks.
And we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. So I have to admit to you something, and I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who are like me. Believe it or not, I never once watched The Apprentice. Ever, when that show was on. I never watched The Apprentice when Trump was on it. I never really cared about that show.
Never.
And
never in my life.
You never watched it either?
Not one episode.
It was really popular. I mean, I know people that don't like Trump, that hate Trump, that loved that show.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a popular show, but it's not that I had anything against Trump at the time or anything. I just really don't like reality television. I've never liked reality television, and I just had no interest in watching that show. So Omarosa, although a lot of people know her from the show, liked her from the show, I really didn't get to know her until she became a part of the White House and until Trump really got into politics. In terms of everything that was going on in that show, I didn't know. I had no idea. But apparently she was really popular on the show, and apparently her and Trump really got along. Omarosa Manigault Newman is now accusing Trump, though, of being a racist, and now saying all of these bad things about Trump. And in fact, I have some audio, a little bit of something that she has said in the past week. She did an interview with NPR basically saying that she now believes Trump is a racist. Can you go ahead and play that cut for me, Paul?
United States. The President of the United States use not only the N-word, other horrible things.
So she's basically saying that she has proof now that the president used the N-word and said all these horrible things. We haven't seen the proof yet. Maybe it'll come out right before the election. I don't know. But Trump responded to this, and he was at an event, and he was asked about it, and this is what he said about Omarosa.
Lowlife. She's a lowlife.
All right, so usual Trump nicknames. Now it's a lowlife Omarosa. Here's the problem with all of this. Here's the problem with this controversy. Neither side on this really has any credibility.
They really don't, especially not with each other.
Exactly. Because let me just play some audio of you as a montage of Omarosa. This is like, a lot of this is from like a year ago. Not even a year ago, not that long ago, of Omarosa praising Trump. Here it is.
When I say Trump train, I want you to say choo-choo. Y'all ready?
Every critic, every detractor will have to bow down to President Trump. I had the honor to travel around the country with the president for the last 2 years. You all know him as the president. I know him as a friend. I know his heart.
So, and actually, there was another comment that she said right after she was fired. She even was asked, do you think Trump is a racist? And she said no. All of a sudden now, Trump is a racist. And it just so happens that she has this book out, too, that she wants you to buy. So that's a nice coincidence. So there we go. The problem is, though, when Trump's calling her a lowlife and all this stuff, Trump doesn't really have much credibility on this either, because here's some audio of Trump praising Omarosa when he was on The Apprentice. Here it is.
I adore you. We've had tremendous success together. You helped make me a star. Dennis, she helped to make me a star. But Omarosa, you're fired.
All right, so that was one of the episodes where he fired her, but, I mean, said she's a star, praised her, invited her into the administration.
You know, a lot of people think there was a few other things going on between Trump and Omarosa.
Stop.
They do.
This is not Entertainment Tonight, Paul.
Well, I mean,
we're
talking about The Apprentice. We're going down
National
that road.
Enquirer. This is not what we're getting into right now. But, I mean, I just find it fascinating that all of a sudden you have this tiff between two people that just like a few months ago were praising each other. So, and the
problem is, I think both of them are right. I think they're both telling the truth. I think Trump said some horrible things. I mean, he's 72 years old. How many 72-year-old white guys have not blurted out the N-word from time to time? And Omarosa's a lowlife. I think they're both right.
Okay, 407-916-5400, text to 23680. Paul, you just couldn't help yourself having to bash Trump here. Well, all right, so now we're going to get the calls and texts. And
Open Mind Monday.
Yeah, we actually do have Open Mind Monday in the 8 o'clock hour. We're just going to make Open Mind Monday an hour of people bashing you, Paul, because that's what you're trying to get this morning. I want to talk more about this. We have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. So it's the first day of school in Orange, Osceola, Volusia, and Lake counties as students in those counties join those in Seminole and Brevard counties returning to class. Drivers are being urged to be extra alert for pedestrians and bicyclists who may suddenly come out of unexpected places. The school buses are heading out today. So, by the way, why in the world did Seminole County and Brevard County start their school on a Friday?
Really? Like, I have no idea.
Don't you have a...
Yes,
you have
my
a daughter
is in Seminole County School, and it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous.
Did they give a reason?
No, they didn't give a reason. The guesstimation is that they were trying to get that was the first day that you could actually start school. And so they were trying to leave as much leeway time for like hurricane days and things like that and get the kids out early. Because Seminole County gets kids out like the last week of May.
But it's one...
I don't get it, man.
Hey, just
when I was in school, let's go all the way back in the Wayback Machine. I'm old now. When I was in school, we went to school on a Wednesday, and they gave you the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to kind of get used to school again and waking up and all that kind of stuff, and then you started your full week the next week. But this, I don't get this at all.
I was really when I heard that story last week, I was like, what? Is that a what?
They tried to claim that it was partially to get kids acclimated so they would have a day to like change classes and things like that, but whatever. Exactly.
I don't believe that. Updates on our top stories every 10 minutes here on Good Morning Orlando.
News, weather, traffic. This is Good Morning Orlando with Bud Hedinger and Deborah Roberts on News Radio 102.5.
So, by the way, Paul, because you were the one starting all the controversy in the last segment.
I was going to say we didn't get any calls. We got texts.
No texts yet.
Man, come on, guys. I set y'all up so great.
Oh, actually, yeah, a lot of people were upset with you. We did get some texts.
Oh, okay, good.
They don't want you to say that about Trump. But actually, what's really interesting about that, though, is Omarosa was asked on Meet the Press if she had ever personally, I don't have audio of this, I should have grabbed it, but she was asked if she personally ever heard Trump use the N-word, and she said no.
She said no, yeah.
Yeah, so even in the things that she's accusing Trump of, it was sort of a hearsay thing.
Right.
In her personal
she
experience.
Even claimed at first that her book said she didn't hear the audio, and then after it was published, she said she had heard the audio. But for like I was telling you before, for me, it's something I don't get mad at 70-year-old guys and 80-year-old guys when they do that, because I think about when they grew up and I think about how it was during that time, and I understand it's hard to change people, man. So when somebody's like, this 80-year-old white guy said the N-word, I'm like, okay. I mean,
you say so. In fact, I've heard in my lifetime, I've heard more young people say it than old people.
For sure.
To be honest.
But they have no excuse. See, I give the excuse to the older guys.
Oh, I see.
But they have no excuse.
Well, I agree with that. Well, when talking about Omarosa, there was one thing I really noticed in all of the coverage over the weekend of it. Most people on the left were not willing to give her any credit.
Nobody believes Omarosa.
Because you would think that they would want to, and you could tell they wanted to cover this because it has to do with race and everything else, and they would bring on these leftist panelists and these Democrat panelists. Too. Yeah, and they would bring, of course, that's why Omarosa did it at this time. We know, come on, it's about money. But they brought on these Democrat panelists and all these leftist panelists, and none of those panelists, even them, who they hate Trump, were like, I'm not going to give Omarosa any credit.
No way.
In fact, I have one comment right here from Ann Navarro, who obviously hates Trump all the time. She was on one of the Sunday talk shows, and it was ABC This Week, and this is what she said about Omarosa.
Omarosa has a buck to make. She is, I am no fan of Donald Trump. That is no secret. But that, and I would tell you, birds of a feather flock together. There is a reason why this is happening over and over again with Donald Trump, and it's because he has surrounded himself by people who are unfit, who don't have the character, and who have no loyalty to him, and so have no qualms about turning loyalty into royalties. That's what we are seeing. What? No, Omarosa has no credibility. She's Ora-Rosa in my book. But neither does Donald Trump or Sarah Sanders.
See, I see it the other way, actually, because I think Omarosa, back in the Apprentice days, recognized Trump is big on loyalty, and she ran that train all the way into the White House. And that's why you've got audio and video of her just praising Trump, and he's the greatest person that's ever been. He's the smartest person. He's the most intelligent. She said all of the same things he said about himself, and she ran that train all the way in. And then when he dropped her, she was like, well, I got to still live, so let me go on the other side, sell these books.
Well, but what I thought was really interesting about all that is there's someone who really hates Trump, and she's criticizing Trump there as well, but she's also like, look, Omarosa has no credibility either.
None.
So there was all this coverage over the weekend of this whole scandal with Omarosa and what Omarosa heard and everything. And even people, Democrats on the left, are like, no, we're not listening to her either.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have Deborah Roberts, who is just joined me in the studio, and she has a lot to say, as always. She has the latest news for us, including D.C. police say Unite the Right went well, and investigators are looking into the theft of a plane from Seattle Airport. It's 6:59 here on Good Morning Orlando. Good morning, Orlando. This is Orlando's news, weather, and traffic here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. Filling in for Bud, this is Yaffe.
And I'm Deborah Roberts, and our top stories this morning. D.C. police say Unite the Right went well, and investigators are looking into that theft of a plane from Seattle Airport. We'll have the details coming up in 1 minute.
So this might be stating the obvious a little bit, but this country is very divided. I want to ask the question, why? What is the root cause of all this division? We'll talk about that this half hour.
And good Monday morning. It's 7:03 on News Radio 102.5. The Unite the Right rally in Washington, D.C. is over and done with. Thousands of counter-protesters overwhelmed a small group of about 24 white nationalists near the White House yesterday. Police were able to keep the group separated throughout, and no major incidents of violence broke out. D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Peter Newsham says they didn't want the two groups to clash.
As I spoke about a few days ago, our main goal today was to maintain separation between the groups. History has shown that when these two groups have gotten together in the past, it often results in violence. I believe we were effective in executing that plan.
But a small skirmish did break out between police and counter-protesters who threw bottles and other objects toward officers. The rally took place on the anniversary of the deadly Charlottesville demonstration that left a counter-protester dead. This news brought to you by Trustco Bank, Florida's hometown bank. The FBI is investigating, but terrorism isn't believed to have been a factor in a bizarre passenger plane theft in Washington state. The 76-seat Horizon airplane was stolen by an employee Friday night. Sitting in the cockpit, 29-year-old Richard Russell, who communicated with air traffic control for a while.
We're going to try to do a barrel roll, and if that goes good, I'm just going to nose down and call it a night.
After performing some stunts in the air, he ended up crashing on an island in the Puget Sound where he died. This woman says witnesses reported hearing the plane crash.
Sunset was done. We went up to the house. They were putting everything away down at the pool, and that's when they heard the boom.
There was no one else on board, but military jets were scrambled out of Portland to intercept him.
Were there any clues that he was suicidal before this?
No, just like, and you can read on our website, 1025WFLA.com, that his family is in absolute shock. They had no idea that Not only was he suicidal and that depressed, but that it would lead to something as drastic as this.
Yeah, and apparently no one knew he had the ability, know-how to fly a plane.
Hadn't even ever taken flying lessons. In fact, some of the other audio of the air traffic control, he says he's played video games before, so he knows what he's doing.
Jeez. What's weird is he kind of did know what he was doing.
He did. I mean, he pulled off some really highly skilled, look like high-skill maneuvers.
What are these video games?
I know.
Video games are so realistic now.
We don't want the kids to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, they probably know. What am I talking about?
Yeah, true.
Well, listen, if you're going to be traveling to the Northeast, be aware that torrential rains are blamed for major flooding in some Boston area communities. More than 8 inches of rain fell yesterday in Lynn, with National Grid forced to shut off power for hundreds of residents because of dangerous flood levels. Close to 30 roads and intersections were left impassable by the flooding, forcing dozens of abandoned vehicles to be towed. The rainfall totals were much lower in Boston, thankfully, where only 1.5 inches was recorded at Logan International Airport. A false rumor is being blamed for spreading panic at a Broward County mall. A suspect armed with a knife tried robbing a store yesterday afternoon at the Sawgrass Mills Mall in Sunrise. People ran for the exits, and word got out that there was an active shooter. Police tweeted there was no active shooter, and the mall was reopened about an hour later. Facebook is blocking its users from sharing instructions for creating 3D printed guns. The social media giant says it'll block sites that provide the information and delete any content related to the creation of the firearms. The move comes as the debate intensifies over the right to publish the plans to build such weapons. And finally, a pair of flip-flops are credited with leading deputies to arrest a car burglary suspect in Flagler County. After arresting 2 other suspects this weekend, deputies noticed a pair of flip-flops stuck in the mud in Palm Coast. They decided to wait out and see if the owner of said flip-flops would emerge. Sure enough, 18-year-old Wayne Williams emerged from the woods. Deputies were there waiting to arrest him. Deputies tell the Daytona Beach News-Journal that Williams and the other teenagers, including a 16-year-old, admitted to breaking into some cars around Ralph Carter Park.
So must have been some flip-flops.
I fell by the flip-flop.
Yeah.
Mental note to self, wear tennis shoes. WFLA News Time at 7:07. Watch as a sinkhole, speaking of all that rain they're getting in the Northeast, you can watch as a sinkhole swallows several cars in a Pennsylvania parking lot at 1025WFLA.com. The second hour of Good Morning Orlando with Yaffe starts now.
News, weather, and traffic for the best audience in talk radio. This is Good Morning Orlando
on News Radio 1025.
Yes, this is Yaffe filling in for Bud from the Front Gate Realty Studio. Dial pound 250, keyword real estate. We have Paul producing and Steph screening your calls at 407-916-5400. You can also text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. So because you have more important things to do on a Sunday, like go to church, spend time with your family, eat a lot of food, or sleep, or watch football, I watched all the Sunday shows for you and listened to the Sunday shows for you so you wouldn't have to. So you could come in Monday morning, listen to me, and get the important points from it. So one thing
That's
I
it.
noticed,
I'm going home. I want to thank you, Mike Yaffe. That was awesome. That was awesome. I wasn't planning to take today off, but you're nothing if not generous.
You are not allowed to go anywhere. Sorry for that. But one of the topics that came up that I thought was really interesting was the topic of political division in this country. Not just political division, there's racial division. There's a lot of cultural division in this country right now.
Listen, we can't decide whether salt and pepper or sugar goes in grits. Now, we have an answer.
Hot sauce is the answer.
Salt and pepper and a fried egg. Hello.
Okay.
Hot sauce is the answer there. But we're going to talk about that. And we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic after a word from Deb in just 2 minutes on News Radio 1025 WFLA. So, during the 2016 campaign season, especially on the Republican side, remember we used to have debate parties at Dock Street Side Grill when I was there. That was a lot of fun, but there was 500 1,000 Republicans running for office that year. So there was lots of people at the debates. But believe it or not, probably my least favorite candidate out of all the Republicans at the time was John Kasich. I really did not like him at the time. I felt like he was, I don't know, just seemed like a disgruntled old man. He was whiny at times. He's way too liberal for me on a lot of his policies, and then would say he's above it all, and he didn't stand up for real conservative principles at the time. I just really didn't like him. I did not want him to be president. That being said, John Kasich was on Meet the Press over the weekend. I talked about earlier how I was listening and watching all the Sunday shows for you, so you don't have to. So you can just get in your car Monday morning, listen to me, and I'll recap it for you. But John Kasich was interviewed on Meet the Press over the weekend, and he actually said something that caught my attention. And honestly, it was a little hard to disagree with. This is what he said.
Look, Chuck, I don't want to just be doing this, some sort of religious hour here. I understand. But I think what's fundamentally changed our country is that many people have not come to understand what faith is, which is loving your neighbor, elevating others sometimes in front of yourself, putting yourself in other people's shoes. And when we don't do that, we lose the essence of our country. When my father and my uncle talked about the Great Depression, everybody pulled together. And what we're seeing now is people pulling apart rather than coming together. And I think that's an element of religiosity. If you're a humanist, I love you anyway because, you believe in making a better tomorrow. But we need the compass back. And I frankly believe it comes from on high. Faith, togetherness, we can do it.
So as a Christian, when I hear something like that, basically what he was saying there is the cause of all the division in this country right now is the fact that we've lost faith in God. We've lost what faith really means. We've lost the WWJD aspect of our morality. What would Jesus do? What would Christ want us to do? And he thinks that losing that moral compass in our society is really the cause of a lot of division. As a Christian and someone who doesn't like John Kasich very much, and I think he's going to end up running for president against Trump, which is going to create a whole other controversy.
Oh, wow. That'll be interesting.
I think he's right on a lot of that. I think that the lack of religion in our society, the lack of God in our society, the lack of faith in our society is the cause of a lot of problems. And it was good to hear John Kasich say that. That being said, there is one problem I have with his thinking on this, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I want your take. When you look at the cultural division in this society, when you look at the racial division in this society, when you look at the political division in this society, what do you think is the root cause of it all? Do you agree with John Kasich? Or is it something else? 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. There is one little thing I have a problem with John Kasich when he says stuff like that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. So in the last segment, we were talking about what is really causing a lot of the division in this country. You see it everywhere. You see it on social media. You see it in our culture. You see it in politics. Heck, you see it in restaurants now. Did you see that story where Jeff Sessions was served at a Tex-Mex restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant takes a picture with them and says it was our honor to serve the Attorney General, and they get blasted on social media. You can't even do that anymore. Didn't endorse his politics or anything. Just said it was an honor to serve the Attorney General, and he was blasted for it. The division in this country is pretty big right now, I think.
You're not allowed to like people that I don't like.
Exactly. That's it. That's a great point. And then I played the audio from John Kasich, who said, it's the lack of God in our society, the lack of that moral compass, which is causing the problem. Now, I got some text on this because I was asking. One person did say the same thing, says you're right on target. The division is the lack of God in our society. Another person, though, says, he says it's easy to figure out. Pride and envy historically is and has been the problem. Let's take some calls on this, and then I want to comment on one thing that Kasich didn't really address, but it's a problem with people like Kasich when he talks about the lack of God in our society. But first, let's take a call. Let's go to Rob in Deltona. Rob, what's your take on all this?
Hi, Yaffe. I'm with you on John Kasich. I cannot stand him at all, and I hope that he doesn't try to run as a third-party candidate or whatever. But I do agree with him. We need to turn to God. But I think the division is a combination of things, and it's mainly spurred by the mainstream media, a 24/7 constant barrage at our president, and then academia, the teachers, infiltrating kids with liberal ideas. And it's a divide and conquer technique, keep us all fighting against each other instead of united we stand.
Gotcha. I appreciate your call there. So, and there's a lot of people that agree with that caller. So there's one thing about Kasich's thinking that I don't like. The one problem with his thinking is that a lot of times when they talk about we need more God in our society, the next sentence usually is, and that's why we need this government program to take care of people. And that's where I get a little reluctant, because Kasich is one of those guys. Well, we have to expand Medicaid because that's what Jesus would want us to do, kind of thinking. And to me, that just makes the problem even worse. So while I agree with Kasich that, yes, the lack of that moral compass is a problem, I also disagree, though, because Kasich is one of those people, and a lot of people on the left are like this. They'll go to Christians and they say, well, if you're a real Christian, then why don't you support socialized medicine? You don't want to take care of the sick? And my point is, no, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Jesus didn't talk about a government coming in and doing this stuff. He talked about us as individuals taking care of our neighbor. And that's the difference, because sometimes socialist policies, most of the time, if not all the time, socialist policies make it worse. So that's the one problem I have with people like Kasich, is they tend to go in that direction. Now, over the weekend, I want to play this audio really quick. If you don't know, I also co-host the Florida Roundtable, which plays on this station Saturday nights, but it plays all across Florida. We interviewed someone. His name is Tom Del Beccaro. He writes for Forbes and a lot of other conservative publications. He's the former chairman of the Republican Party in California. He has a new book out on the division in this country. And his answer for why there's a lot of division in this country right now, I thought was really interesting. And nobody's really saying this, but I think he makes a good point. This is what he said.
That division is not primarily the cause of individual players. It's not about lobbyists. It's not even about money in government. The larger government gets, the more decisions it makes, the more winners and losers it creates, and the greater the competition. The competition over $4 trillion in federal spending is a lot bigger than the competition over $100 billion. And so as government grows, that competition grows. As competition grows, division grows. The middle disappears. Party discipline raises. The higher the stakes, the greater the division. The stakes have never been higher, and as long as government grows, they'll continue to get larger. That's the basic premise. People need to understand that when they view our current divisions and stop blaming the individual players. The next Democrat president is going to be loved by Republicans, and the next Republican president is going to be loved by Democrats under these circumstances.
So he's basically making the point that our government has gotten so large, $4 trillion budget every year, that of course there's going to be deep divisions in this country because the competition for a giant government is going to be greater because the government has more control over these things. So when you look at the political division, it's because, yes, more is at stake. And the reason why more is at stake and we're so divided is because the government has gotten so big, so expensive, and so powerful that that's where we feel like we have to go to solve the country's problems. And that is one of the problems. All right, Deborah Roberts just joined me in the studio. That means it's time for me to shut up, and it's time to talk about the latest news at the bottom of the hour. It's 7:30 here on Good Morning Orlando. Yes, this is Good Morning Orlando here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA from the Front Gate Realty Studio. Dial pound 250 keyword real estate. We have Paul producing today, Steph screening your calls at 407-916-5400. And you can screen your calls right now if you want to call in early for the Sound Judgment Game. We have a great prize today. It's tickets to a Disney show that's fun for the whole family, and Steph's going to tell you more about that a little bit later. But if you want to call early for the Sound Judgment Game, you can call right now, 407-916-5400. But before we get to the Sound Judgment Game, we have Deborah Roberts, who is here, and she's going to talk about the latest news and some other stuff.
Yep, sure am.
If her mic was on. But
if my microphone was on. It's a Monday. The big story of the day is 1 year after the deadly white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, police in Washington, D.C. are relieved that Sunday's Unite the Right rally didn't have the same outcome. A heavy police presence was able to keep the two sides apart, so the event ended without any major incident. The only sign of trouble was a short skirmish between counter-protesters and police. This news brought to you by Trustco Bank, Florida's hometown bank. Say it isn't so. One of the world's greatest eating contest champions just came up short in Wisconsin.
Really?
Joey Chestnut, who is ranked first in the world by Major League Eating. Didn't know there was an MLE.
I didn't either.
Competed in the
I should have assumed.
I should have assumed as well. Competed in the Wisconsin State Fair cheese curd eating contest this weekend. He placed third behind Gideon Oji and first place winner Darren Breeden. Breeden scarfed down 5 pounds, 2 ounces of curds in 6 minutes. Darren. I had him so beat growing up in Green Bay. Oh, yeah. The prize included, though, $4,000.
Nice.
And do you know what I learned over the weekend?
What's that?
Do you know the genesis of the Guinness World Records?
No,
How it
I
got
don't.
started? It actually got started. I learned this yesterday watching CBS Sunday Morning because the Guinness Brewery had commissioned these two world-class writers to come up with a fact-filled book that would end arguments in pubs.
Really?
That's how the Guinness Book of World Records
It is
was
true.
created.
That's where the arguments usually are.
That's exactly.
That was before the age of Google, though.
Of course.
So now you just Google it. But back then it was like, well, we need a book that we can reference to settle these arguments once and for all.
Once and for all. Speaking of food, McDonald's is offering one loyal customer the chance to win a McGold card. The contest is aimed at boosting the popularity of the new online ordering system. So whoever wins the McGold card will be entitled to 2 free meals a week for the next 50 years.
Oh.
With a value of roughly
That's a good deal.
$52,000. That's a great deal. I saw you paying attention all of a sudden.
I pay attention to all of your newscasts, Deb.
What? The promotion starts Friday and will continue through August 24th, and you can be entered by using the McDonald's app to order a meal or by emailing entry@amoentry.com. Those hoping to win are limited to 1 entry per day. The winner will be announced at the end of August.
You know, a lot of these fast food chains have it where you can order on the app and you can do it ahead of time and then show up, and I never do that.
I don't either. There's something weird about having a McDonald's app on my phone.
Oh, is that what it is for you?
I don't want to admit I eat that much McDonald's.
Oh, okay.
And I really don't. To put an app on my phone?
I mean, I didn't think about it that way. I mean, usually, honestly, I think with me, it's usually I haven't decided what I want to eat until I'm there. Like
Same here.
Like until I'm driving in that direction, I'm like, oh, which restaurant do I want to go to? I'll go to this one.
Well, not only that, is the 4.5 minute wait at McDonald's just way too long to bear?
Yeah, that's true too. You know, That's a good point.
That is a good point.
I've never had the urgency to use the app, but people do it.
Yeah, they do.
I go like Chipotle, and people, they pick up their order after they've ordered online.
Yep.
It's weird.
Maybe someday we'll learn.
I feel old school or something.
You are old.
I would just rather go wait in line for
Elder
2
millennial.
minutes. Exactly. All right, is that it, Deb?
Well, I did want to end with today is International Left-Handers Day.
Oh, my mom's left-handed.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So am I. The holiday was first observed in 1976 to promote awareness of all the inconveniences that left-handed people face, like scissors.
My mom had a pair of left-handed scissors.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of things. It also promotes the advantages they have. Only around 10% of people, like your mom, are lefties.
Only 10%, really?
Only 10%. And yet the majority of astronauts who have gone into space and walked on the moon have been left-handed.
So my mom thinks that I should have been left-handed. She tells me this all the time.
Does she really?
Because when we were like little, when we were kids, I would use my left hand a lot. But she's convinced, because I have a twin sister, and she was right-handed, she's convinced that I forced myself to be right-handed to be like her.
Really?
But that actually I was supposed to be left-handed.
Well, come on over to the dark side. Come on.
I
Become
mean,
ambidextrous.
I do notice I lift more things with my left hand, but I can't write or like bowl or anything with my left hand, so I don't know.
I cannot do anything with my right hand except sports.
Really?
I cannot do any sports with my left hand.
That's weird.
I am weird.
So, and then I know with a lot of twins, it doesn't really count because we're fraternal twins, but identical twins, I know a lot of them, one is right-handed, one is left-handed.
Ooh, that's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a mirror thing. Isn't that weird?
Interesting. It is weird.
Mm-hmm.
It is weird.
So there you go, some twin trivia for you
and
today.
And some left-handed stuff from out of left field. There you go.
All right, so all right, it's time for the sound judgment game now, though. 407-916-5400, 407-916-5400 for your chance to win a great prize. We're going to do that next, and we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. And it is time for the sound judgment game right now. And Steph is here, and Steph is going to tell you what you can win.
That's right, Yaffe. So today we have a 4-pack of tickets to Disney on Ice presents Mickey's Search Party at the Amway Center happening September 7th through the 9th. Tickets are on sale now. Visit 1025WFLA.com, keyword tickets for more info.
Oh, my God. Mickey's lost?
No, what do you mean Mickey's lost?
She said Mickey's Search Party. Where'd he go? What happened? We gotta find him.
I don't know, but apparently they have to find him on ice skates as well. So there you go. Actually, that'll be a great event for the whole family. So definitely want to check that out. If someone gets a wrong answer, you can call 407-916-5400. So over the weekend, actor.
That's my fault.
He will beat me up.
Yeah, he will.
If I call him an actor. Okay, over the weekend, actor Idris Elba tweeted out a hint that maybe he will play the next James Bond after Daniel Craig gives up the role. I want you to listen to a montage of all the actors playing James Bond over the years, giving the traditional line. Then use your sound judgment to tell me how many James Bond movies have there been?
Who are you?
Bond. James. Mr. Bond. James.
Bond. James Bond.
And Mr. Bond. James.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
All right, that was all of them in order, by the way, from Sean Connery to Daniel Craig. The question, though, is how many James Bond movies have there been in total? Let's go to line 2. Line 2, how many James Bond movies have there been? Line 2?
Hello.
Yes, line 2, how many James Bond movies have there been?
26.
Oh, that's right. That's exactly right. You just Googled that, didn't you? You were just
I admit I did.
You were at your computer. That's why there was a delay. You were at your computer or your phone. You're like, I'm going to Google that. All right, that's allowed, though. I mean, there's no rules against that. So, all right, yeah, 26 James Bond movies. And Idris Elba might be the next James Bond. He would be the first black James Bond, which would be a big deal. But, all right, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Joe in Cocoa.
Joe in Cocoa. All right. And are you excited about those tickets?
Oh, definitely.
All right. Well, I'll put you on hold. Steph is going to tell you how you can pick up those tickets, and congratulations on winning. So I actually like Idris Elba a lot. He's in the Thor movies, and he does a really good job, but he's a really versatile actor, and I think he would actually be a really good James Bond.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great one. I
really
do.
The reason why I like him so much is because he has charisma and personality. There's a lot of people that tell me their favorite James Bond is Daniel Craig. I don't get it. I don't see why. I think the movies were good. Skyfall might be one of the best James Bond movies ever, because action-wise and director-wise and cinematography-wise, those are really good movies. But to me, Daniel Craig has no personality. He is a stiff, in my opinion. He does no... I expect James Bond to have real charisma. That's why I liked Pierce Brosnan. He had charisma.
Pierce Brosnan was one of my favorites, actually.
Tomorrow Never Dies is like one of my favorite movies. This is a great movie. But Daniel Craig is giving it up. Idris Elba, I think, would be a great James Bond. And as I was telling Paul during the break, I'm obviously okay with a black person playing James Bond. I would not be okay, though, with a woman playing James Bond.
Ooh.
So there might be so if you want to call for Open Mind Monday and yell at me if you're a woman and you want a woman James Bond, you can, 407-916-5400. But I really don't like the idea because I believe women and men are essentially different. And if you have a woman,
we're not
James,
different.
Yes.
We're the same.
This is sarcasm by Paul, by the way. He's trying to get the audience riled up again. But no, I believe that men and women are essentially different. And if you have a woman James Bond, you would have to completely change the character. It would be completely different, because if you put a woman in that role and make the woman basically act like James Bond did, people aren't going to buy it, because that's not how women usually are. So I would be okay with a black James Bond, of course, but I would not be okay with a woman James Bond. We have the Rush Morning Update coming up on Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. So it's been a fast show so far, but we have one more hour to go, and it's Monday, and that means in the 8 o'clock hour, you can call on any topic, the topic of your choice. We've been talking about a lot of different things. I've been going over the important things that I've noticed during the Sunday shows, because you have much more important things to do on a Sunday than watch Meet the Press and Face the Nation and This Week and all that. So I took the liberty of watching it for you, so you can ask me anything about it in the next hour, because you can call on any topic. And usually we call it Open Mind Monday because it's your take and Bud has to keep an open mind. But I want to do something a little different today. If you want to call and just ask for my take on something on any topic, and you want Yaffe's take, you have to get Yaffe's take on this topic. I want you to call 407-916-5400, even if it's like a restaurant opinion or something, or my favorite color. I don't care. If you want to know an opinion by me, Yaffe, on something I have not talked about, it could be a theological question. Those are always fun. You can call in the next hour, 407-916-5400. By the way, also, if you want a chance to win a trip to Las Vegas and the iHeartRadio Music Festival, where you're going to want to listen after the news to the top of the hour for the keyword and text it to 200-200. That's coming up as well. And Deborah Roberts is also just walked into the studio, and she's going to give us the latest news as well. It's 7:59 here on Good Morning Orlando. Good morning, Orlando. Monday morning here on the 50,000-watt front porch, where we update Orlando's news, weather, and traffic on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. Filling in for Bud. This is Yaffe. Deb, wake up.
I'm awake. I just heard you say Monday.
All right.
Our top stories this morning. D.C. police say Unite the Right went well. And Governor Scott visits areas affected by those algae blooms. We'll have the details coming up in 1 minute.
So usually in the 8 o'clock hour, you can call in on any topic, and I want you to do that. But I want you to ask me anything. Get Yaffe's take. It can be on anything.
I was going to say, careful.
Yeah, well,
champ. Don't ask about anything.
Within FCC regulations. We'll put it that way. We'll do that next.
And good Monday morning. It's 8:03 on News Radio 102.5. Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Peter Newsham says officers handled yesterday's Unite the Right rally really well.
An event like this has a high probability of injury and possibility of even death, as we saw in Charlottesville just 1 year ago. No one was injured today in the District of Columbia, and nobody was killed.
D.C. authorities were able to keep both sides separated and no large-scale incidents of violence broke out. Newsham said officers from many jurisdictions handled the rally well. He also said their idea to keep dueling sides separate was effective. Again, there were no injuries or deaths. The rally was held on the anniversary of last year's contentious Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where a woman was killed after a white supremacist plowed his car into a crowd. This news brought to you by Trustco Bank, Florida's hometown bank. Forecasters are watching a storm system in the Atlantic Ocean, but they don't think it has much of a chance of forming into a tropical storm. The system is churning in the Atlantic about 500 miles south of Newfoundland. The National Hurricane Center says it's currently producing showers and thunderstorms, but in the next few days, the chances that it will get stronger are very small. So far this hurricane season, there have been 4 named storms. NOAA recently came out with an updated hurricane season forecast, saying there was a high chance it would be a below-average hurricane season.
Knock on wood.
Governor and
just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Governor and U.S. Senate candidate Rick Scott has been blaming the feds for Florida's epidemic of green slime, accusing the Army Corps of Engineers of flushing pollution from Lake Okeechobee. But a leaky Moncrief with the Florida Conservation Voters says he's the one who made it happen.
They point the finger at the Army Corps for flushing the toilet, when really it's the governor and the legislature that filled the toilet with pollution to the brim.
During his first year in office, Scott ordered hundreds of millions of dollars in cuts at the water management districts, and hundreds of scientists and regulators were fired. He also abolished the state agency that regulated large developments. Thousands of people are calling for an action to stop the spread of algae in the Gulf and local rivers. A group called South Florida Clean Water Movement held dozens of events yesterday as people held hands on several beaches. Hands Along the Water was meant to get state officials to do something about red tide that's blamed for killing thousands of fish. A Hollywood resident who attended an event in Fort Lauderdale tells the Sun-Sentinel it's not just about fish, though, but about tourism and the livelihoods of business owners. Meanwhile, there may be signs that red tide is creeping toward Tampa Bay. Dozens of dead crabs were found yesterday in Hillsborough Bay near Bay to Bay Boulevard. The water will have to be tested to see if red tide is the cause, but one scientist is doubtful. Experts tell the Tampa Bay Times the deaths could be blamed on nearby industries or even disease. And finally, Tahlequah, the killer whale, this is a sad story, is done carrying her dead calf around the Pacific Northwest. The whale had been carrying the body of her dead calf for at least 1,000 miles over 17 days. As of this week, though, whale researchers say Tahlequah is back with the rest of her pod, seemingly healthy and moving on. Carrying her baby around wasn't unusual, scientists say.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, it's an observable expression of grief among many mammals, including dolphins and gorillas. They say that the reason the baby whale died and others are still in danger is that there isn't enough salmon around to feed them.
I mean, that just shows how intelligent killer whales are.
Yeah, absolutely. 17 days she was on a grief tour.
Wow.
Separated from her pod and everything. WFLA News Time, it's 8:07, and you can read about a New York City taxi driver arrested after a road rage brawl. I believe there's also a video there for you at 1025WFLA.com. The third hour of Good Morning Orlando with Yaffe starts now.
News, weather, traffic. This is Good Morning Orlando on News Radio 102.5.
Yes, and this is the hour where you can ask Yaffe anything. Get Yaffe's take on anything. Call 407-916-5400. Also, we have a chance, or you have a chance, to win a trip to Las Vegas. What you want to do is listen for the keyword and text it to 200-200. That's coming up right after a word from Deb. And then we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. So this is where I'm taking a really big risk, because I'm asking the audience, if you're listening right now, to ask me anything. Ask me anything. Get Yaffe's take on something that's going on within reason, FCC regulations and all that. But ask my take on politics, my take on religion, my take on food if you want, or sports. I'll do the best I can at the sports one. I've not been keeping track of that lately, but you can call and ask me anything. 407-916-5400. Let's go to Mike in Orlando. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Yappy. I've heard you and Bud both talk on each of your shows about how Hillary Clinton gave away 20% of the United States uranium.
Mm-hmm.
As a former member of Uranium One and a Republican, I would like an explanation where you guys come up with that.
Okay, so that's a good point. You're basically trying to debunk that?
Yes.
Go ahead, and I'll let you go first. Go ahead and debunk it.
Oh, no, this is Ask Yappy. I'm waiting for you to explain to me.
Okay, so basically what it is you're right. It wasn't that they gave away uranium, but they gave away a portion of that company. Isn't that right?
No.
Okay, so what is the right take?
Uranium One is a company that held mines in Kazakhstan, United States, and in Canada.
Uh-huh.
It's a Canadian-owned company,
right?
And they sold it to the Russians.
Okay, but it had to get to it. Well, it had to get to it through the approval of the State Department and the approval of that board. Now, Hillary Clinton wasn't on that specific board.
It had to go through the Uranium Commission only.
Yeah, and it had Hillary Clinton wasn't on that board, but there were other members of the State Department on that board, right?
No, the Uranium Commission decides where the uranium goes, and it always stays in the United States because we never produce enough for all of our uranium for our you know what I'm talking about, where it goes. So it's never left the United States.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't that the uranium physically left the United States, but it had to do with that company selling, and that had to get through the approval. And a lot of people think that Hillary Clinton there was some nefarious things going on behind the scenes on why they approved that, dealing with Hillary Clinton. And you believe that there were not nefarious things behind the scenes, that Hillary Clinton had nothing to do with it.
No, the way it was worded is that she gave away 20% of the United States uranium. Pure and simple.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Yeah, you're right on that point, because we can't give away 20% of the uranium. It's not like we physically shipped it over there. It has to do with the portion of that company.
But these are mines that weren't even producing.
These were mines. So to you, it's not a big deal.
Well, to me, it's more fabrication. I'm a registered Republican, but I don't want Democrats talking bad about Republicans. I don't want Republicans talking bad about Democrats.
You want to stick to the issues, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, don't make up stuff like Trump does.
Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate your call.
I appreciate that clarity, because everything that I had ever heard about Uranium One basically said that they sold 20% of the United States uranium to the Russians.
It was a
gave
stake.
The idea that Hillary Clinton was in cahoots with the Russians to take America's uranium.
It was a stake in the uranium company. It wasn't the physical uranium, but it did have to get through approval by someone in the State Department. And that's where the connection is. And there was also connections behind the scenes, and there was an FBI investigation into it and all that stuff. Let's go to another call here. Let's go to Ed in Oviedo. Ed, what's your take this morning?
I've been listening to your broadcast regularly since moving here. I enjoy getting the news from you folks rather than any other station.
Uh-huh.
But my comment is, is it really necessary for either you or generally the bud man interrupting Deborah to make their comments to her about what she's saying?
Ah, so you like Deb
waiting till later on.
So you like Deb's news so much that we should just stay silent throughout her newscast.
I would appreciate that.
Interesting. That's interesting. We try to make it conversational. Deb and I just have a good time, and we like to talk. But you think, no. Budman, Yaffe, shut up. Deb should just do the news.
Just the news for the time being. Then later on, when you can really get into it, then fine.
Gotcha. We have like a program director going. All right. I said ask me anything, so you can ask me anything you want. 407-916-5400. We got more calls, and you can call as well. And we have our latest news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFM. So we had a call earlier on the Uranium One situation and how there's a lot of misconceptions because a lot of people think that Hillary Clinton approved the removal of actual uranium to Russia. That's not exactly what happened. What happened was, I did to brush up on this a little bit. It's been a little while since I looked into the Uranium One thing. What happened is Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. The Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States has 9 members. The Secretaries of Treasury, State, Defense, Homeland Security, Commerce, and Energy, and the Attorney General, and representatives from 2 White House offices. That committee had to approve the sale of a stake of Uranium One to Russia. A lot of people think because the Russians were putting a lot of money into the Clinton Foundation, that Hillary Clinton worked behind the scenes to make sure that sale would happen to help the Russians, and that showed a conflict of interest between the Clintons, the Clinton Foundation, and the Russians, and this sale of a stake of Uranium One. So the caller was right. It wasn't actually giving uranium to him, but it was a stake in a company, and it has to be approved by different agencies in the government, or it usually is approved because there's national security interests. Some people believe, everything was on the up and up. Hillary Clinton just voted for it because everyone else did. Other people believe that there were some nefarious things going on behind the scenes, especially with the Clinton Foundation, and that's why it was approved in the conflict of interest. Actually, we have another call on that. Let's go to Mike in Melbourne. Mike, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. And there's for anybody interested in it, there's a great article in National Review on this it's a complicated deal. And to generalize it as the Clintons sold 20% of the uranium is, trying to make a very complicated situation simple.
Yeah.
But in defense of you and Bud, it's like the Putin regime paid somebody named Clinton $500,000.
Yeah, the New York Times covered that.
$500 million for a 1-hour speech. There was the guy that brokered the deal, the Russian that brokered the deal, was denied visas by the FBI for fraud and racketeering, and basically it was a cover-up by the Obama administration Department of Justice.
Yeah, the Democrats will say that investigation is not legitimate for some reasons. I've heard that as well, but
yeah, I mean there were so many shenanigans going on, and basically the deal ends up that the Russians are treated favorably in all these transactions. They are paid exorbitant over the market values for the uranium at the expense of United States companies. It's a bad deal all around for America. And
gotcha. All right, I'll have to look up that national.
Previous caller was on the up and up.
Right,
Okay.
I have to look at that National Review article as well. All right, and this is the hour where you can ask me anything. I was hoping to get a theological question or something like that. Maybe a riddle. Okay, I don't know if I want riddles, but 407-916-5400. Let's take another call real quick. Richard in Apopka. Richard, what question you got for me?
Good morning, Yappy. You're familiar with the term rhino, Republican in name only, of course.
Exactly, yes.
What I'd like to know is if there has ever been a dino. Do they exist, or are they extinct, or is there any alive today?
Democrats in name only, I guess is what you mean, right?
Exactly.
That's a good question. Are there any dinos?
They spent half of their party has infiltrated our party. I was just wondering if we have anybody on our side in their party.
No.
You know what? I don't think so. I mean, the closest to it would be like a Joe Manchin, but even he's not Republican.
No.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, because if there are Democrats in name only in the party, it's because they're actually socialists and not true Democrats. It's not that they're actually Republicans in the Democrat Party. Because usually what happens is, instead of them going to the Democrat Party if they disagree with the Republicans, they go Libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of Libertarians who disagree with Republicans on social issues but agree with economic issues, but they go Libertarian. They don't go to the Democrat Party. So that's interesting. Democrats in name only. I'd have to think about that more, but that's actually a really good point. I never thought of.
I really don't think there are any. Most of the Democrats are sound with democratic ideals, and they really hold fast to a lot of the strategic pillars of the Democratic Party. They're not just in there because it's an easy win for the district.
Yeah, well, I mean, there might be some of that, but they don't vote like...
No.
It's not like they go in and they vote the other way or something.
No, not at all.
They might be doing it for other motives, but yeah, it's very interesting. All right, Deborah Roberts has just come in. She's going to talk about the news at the bottom of the hour, including that Unite the Right rally in Washington, D.C., and a Charlottesville rally paid tribute to Heather Heyer. It's 8:31 on Good Morning Orlando. So, Deb... We had a caller earlier, because it's Ask Yaffe Anything. Get Yaffe's take on anything today for this hour. He said, talking to me, why do you and Bud constantly interrupt Deb's newscasts?
Yeah. No.
Says loves your newscast so much, loves getting the news from you, but doesn't understand why we interrupt. Would just want you to speak. So I might have to just let you do the
For the
news.
record, Deb, I've been saying this for years. Years.
Hey, I actually like it. I like it when they comment and it spurs conversation, and I have no problem with it at all. I like it.
That's why we do it, but
I would
I'm
like
a
to
little scared now.
Well, no, that's not. Don't even try. Don't even try, Mike Yaffe, because I'm going to let the audience in on a little secret. Whomever texted about the fact that they have just invented quantum tunneling through quantum tethering, now we can have a window in space anywhere. This is amazing. What do you think? Well, to the person who texted that, Mike Yaffe is currently studying that, so he will not be a part of this newscast.
No, I already looked it up. I'm good now.
Oh,
I know all about it.
You know all about quantum tunneling through quantum tethering in the past 2.5 minutes.
No big deal.
He Googled it.
That's 2018 for you folks.
He Googled it. He has all the information he needs.
Got it.
And this is why I'm in constant Facebook debates right here. This is the reason.
All right, Deb, what news do you have for us?
Well, I have the good news that Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Peter Newsham says officers dealt with yesterday's Unite the Right rally really well, and says D.C. is well equipped to handle events like this.
There's no city better equipped to facilitate large-scale events than Washington, D.C. Today was an example of a well-executed plan to safeguard people and property while allowing individuals to exercise their First Amendment rights.
D.C. authorities were able to keep both sides separated, and no large-scale incidents of violence were reported. Newsham said officers from many jurisdictions helped maintain order, and again, there were no injuries reported. This news brought to you by Trustco Bank, Florida's hometown bank. Meanwhile, it's been 1 year since the deadly rally in Charlottesville, and one of the victims is being remembered. Heather Heyer was ran over last year, and hundreds came out yesterday for her memorial. Heyer's mother, Susan Bro, says she doesn't want other mothers to have to go through what she did.
So today, not only do we remember my baby girl, I want to thank the troopers for their sacrifice, and these flowers are for the troopers.
Police in Charlottesville arrested 4 people in a day of demonstrations against racial bigotry yesterday. Meanwhile, Charlottesville mayor says the city still hasn't healed. And finally, controversy over the national anthem is prompting police unions in South Florida to call on their members to boycott the Miami Dolphins. During the playing of the anthem during last Thursday's preseason opener, wide receivers Kenny Stills and Albert Wilson took a knee, and defensive end Robert Quinn raised his fist while standing. They were protesting social and racial injustice, and the NFL announced there will be no punishment. So unions representing officers in Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach counties are canceling their participation in a program where members get discounted prices on Dolphin tickets. And you can get these stories and more at 1025WFLA.com. The third hour of Good Morning Orlando continues now with more Ask Yaffe Anything.
See, there you go. That was a great newscast. No interruptions by me.
Yeah, thanks for leaving me hanging.
Ed, who called in earlier, will be very happy. I think it was Ed who said that.
Well, thank you, Ed, for liking my newscast so much. I really appreciate everyone who listens to them.
All right, and we're getting calls and texts on this hour of Ask Yaffe Anything. We'll get to that next. We have Orlando's news, weather, and yes, on quantum mechanics. I'm getting questions on quantum mechanics.
And now we've got news about a hydrogen membrane bubble around our solar system. They think it's the official boundary, something for you to study up on in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, believe it or not, I actually did read that story over the weekend, that last one. I actually did.
I share your facial expression, Deb.
I did. I saw that story. All right. We update Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 W. So, yes, it is true because Bud is not here. We usually do Open Mind Monday, but I thought I would take this hour to give you the chance to ask Yaffe anything you want. And, of course, on the text line, someone thought it would be really nice to ask this question. They just invented quantum tunneling through quantum tethering. Now we can have a window in space anywhere. This is amazing. What do you think? I think you're trying to sound really smart and get me, and you did because I don't know what that. I don't know what that is. I don't. I've heard.
It's a gotcha question.
I've heard of quantum tethering. I did not hear of quantum tunneling. I was looking up a little bit during the break, but it is definitely a little bit over my head.
It's a little complex.
What I think is it sounds great. Awesome. So, but then that same person asked me this, said they just found a hydrogen membrane bubble around our solar system. They think that's the official boundary. Pretty cool looking stuff here. And I actually did read a story on that because it has to do with NASA's New Horizons spacecraft. They believe that there's a hydrogen wall at the outer boundary of our home solar system. And it's a place where our sun's bubble of solar winds ends and where a mass of interstellar matter too small to burst through the wind builds up, pressing inwards. So, pretty cool stuff there. A little bit beyond my pay grade as well.
What was that?
I do like NASA stuff. I do find NASA stuff pretty cool, actually. Let's take another call here. Let's go to Bob in Longwood. Bob, what do you got for me this morning?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. You know, some states have, reported spending as much as $3.3 billion a year on higher education and higher law enforcement and higher health care costs to provide, direct services for illegal aliens. And I can't understand why they're having such a hard time in Orange County and a lot of the schools throughout Florida that they can't have metal detectors. They only have one or two, or actually in Orange County, they have portable classrooms, 27 that are not done yet.
So you think the money isn't being spent wisely, or do you think we need to spend more money on those things?
No, it's not being spent wisely because it's spending on people that actually they're illegal and they broke the law. And actually the taxpayers, they provide, and they're not providing enough protection for the kids in school. Thank you.
Gotcha. All right. I appreciate your call there. Let's take another call. Let's go to Pete in Orlando. Pete, what do you got for me?
Yeah, I wanted to know why Bud kind of let that story pass last week about the tax raise for mass transit go by. He's a New Yorker, but I don't know what part. But I lived in metropolitan New York City, and we could not afford mass transit. And there's probably 10 million people in the metropolitan area. How does Orange County think it's going to afford it?
Well, we did mention that there was a tax coming for Sunrail.
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
You mentioned it and it went by.
Oh, okay. Bud and I are
New York's in the sewer now. New York's in the sewer because it tries to support mass transit.
Yeah, I mean, I know we talked about it. I mean, you got to listen 3 hours every day, but I know we did talk about it one day pretty extensively, but he was saying that we need to root for Sunrail's success now and the extension success, because if we don't, they're going to raise taxes on us. But you're thinking they're going to, and they've already raised taxes for it somewhat.
Now, the extension success, because if we don't, they're going to.
Okay, yeah, well,
I guess that's the end of that.
I think it got disconnected. I mean, Bud and I have railed against Sunrail a lot.
I got it.
Yeah, wordplay. Let's take another call here. But yeah, there was I don't have the specifics in front of me, but there was a proposed tax hike to pay for Sunrail, and that's going to come anyways because the funding's going to run out for it. So they expected it to maybe be able to fund itself through ticket sales, but obviously that's not happened because this is Orlando and not New York City. All right, let's take another call here. Let's go to John in Winter Springs. John, what do you got for me?
Good morning, Yappy. I was listening to you earlier. You were asking about maybe a riddle, and maybe not a riddle. And how about a limerick instead?
Okay, go ahead.
We were talking about why Hillary Clinton lost the election, and it didn't have to do with Donald Trump colluding with the Russians.
Okay.
So the limerick is, Hillary Billary lie, get away with it, media's why. They manipulate the electorate for the candidate that needs an expectorant. None of her policies fly. She wants to be the first female, but won't allow her email to be read by the FBI. Hillary Billary lie, the military's hand she will tie. Decisions she'll make for a narrative's sake will cause soldiers' mothers to cry. Those same mothers she'll face, and to our nation's disgrace, she'll tell those mothers a lie. Hillary Billary lie. Health insurance premiums go sky high. Just one little quirk if you're an American that works, you won't meet the deductible till you die. Out on the stump, all she can do is bash Trump. Nothing new left for Hillary to try. Hillary Billary lie. The laws of our land she'll defy. She snubs law enforcement, seeks Black Lives endorsement. They want our policemen to die. She's sure she'll get away with pay to play because to her the law does not apply. Hillary Billary lie. Protect us? She won't even try. She'll keep an executive order making a civ of our border. It's a huge mistake to support her. If you ask me, we should deport her. All those in favor say aye.
So I have to ask, did you
actually really good.
Did you actually come up with that yourself?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
October, November, right before the election, I came up with it. And
man, you should have put it. You should have put it to music and had that thing on YouTube.
Yeah, that needs to go.
That thing would have gone viral.
How about a rap artist? Get a rap artist to do it. Hillary lie.
I don't know. It did rhyme though. I mean, that was pretty good. I appreciate your call, John. I appreciate some of these calls. I am a little upset that some of them aren't questions. This is the time you can ask me anything, but it's usually open my money, so they can comment as well.
They already, you've done such a good job of explaining your stance. There's no reason to ask.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
So you have a question for me, which I want to get to in the next segment because it's a great question. And we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 102.5 WFLA. So this has been the hour where you can ask Yaffe anything. And we have a call, of course, from Bertha, who wants to ask me a question. Bertha in DeLand, had a feeling you were going to call today because you wanted to ask me a question. So go ahead, Bertha.
Good morning, Yappy and Paul. How are you?
I'm good.
Fantastic, good. Bertha.
Tell me why a soldier takes a knee when he presents the flag to the family of a fallen soldier.
So why a soldier takes a knee when he presents the flag?
He takes a knee and he presents the flag to the fallen soldier, to the family,
to honor
family of the fallen soldier.
To honor the fallen soldier memory to the family.
Yeah, why does he take a knee?
It's a sign of reverence to the family, a sign of humble reverence to the family that he's presenting the flag to.
Mm-hmm. So why does people have a problem with the NFL taking a knee?
Well, because, I mean, it's interpretation of why they're taking the knee.
Yeah, why?
Because, well, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons. One, they believe that they're taking a knee because they don't like the country and they feel like it's disrespecting the flag.
No, that's not true.
I mean,
she's asking you, why are they taking the knee?
Well, they're taking a knee. According to the words of Colin Kaepernick, he's taking a knee because he feels like, one, police brutality is a big problem, and two, he feels like blacks are unfairly oppressed in this country.
Right. So they're not disrespecting the flag. They're taking a knee just like the soldiers give the flag to the fallen. It's respect.
Is it really respect? I don't think it's really respect, because they're really believing that the country isn't living up to the ideals, not that they're respecting the country.
I think what she's saying is, in the same way the soldier is taking a knee in reference to the fallen soldier, the person who's died, the players are taking a knee in reference to the black men who have been shot, who have died. So it's the same level of reverence in taking a knee. I think that's the area she's trying to equate.
Okay. I'm not sure there's an equivalence there.
Why not?
Because one, he basically, when he's taking a knee, and this is his words, he believes that the country hasn't lived up to those ideals. And that's why he's taking a knee, because the country has unfairly oppressed black people. In terms of a soldier who's taking a knee, he's not saying anything that the country hasn't lived up to the ideals or anything else. He's just honoring the family.
Well, that was just one thing he said. His initial reason for taking the knee was because black people were being killed.
Yeah, police brutality.
Right.
But he takes a knee during the flag.
So that's the equivalence of the, I mean, I would imagine that's the equivalence of the reverence of somebody who's died.
Yeah,
but I've got
a better question for you. Well, no, we're out of time. We have 10 seconds left. I appreciate that. I appreciate you listening to this morning, and I'll end the show just like Bud does. God bless you, and God bless America.